All right, we're talking about debt today. But first, are there any questions about Canvas or the assignments or taking the survey, getting on Canvas and putting I took the survey, anything like that? You guys got it? Okay. So there's still quite a few of you that haven't taken it. I mean, most of you have, but there's still maybe 10 or 12 that haven't at least put it in Canvas that you've taken it. So if you've taken the survey, then go ahead and do that. So last week was a freebie. If you joined late, if you didn't know you were in this class, mini-semester, whatever, you can still get the credit for last week, because the first link I just sent and the second link, hopefully today I'll send for the classes. You can watch it if you weren't here and take the survey, all right? But starting today, this week and on, then you need to be in the class and hopefully participating, whether it's vocally or internally, how to improve yourself financially. So any questions about any of that? We're good to go? All right, so we got a lot to cover today. We'll be talking about debt. So anybody know how much debt we have in the U.S.? What's the U.S. federal debt? Any guesses? A lot, yes. What's a guess? 13 trillion, okay. 21 trillion, all right. 60 trillion. 22 trillion, all right, let's check it out. Debt clock. All right, so what does this say? It says 22 trillion up here. Can you guys see? I know you can't see all these numbers. And it doesn't let me go bigger. So 22 trillion, almost 23 trillion of national debt. Does anybody understand what that even means? No. Like $1 trillion? Like, what does that mean, right? So, you know, the election's coming up. I mean, for mayor, but for president. And we have different people putting things out there. And I just was listening to something or read something yesterday or the day before with Bernie Sanders. All the things that he wants to do is going to add like 300 and something trillion to the debt if all of his plans go through. So we gotta decide, you know, what we want. Lots of people like free stuff, but somebody has to pay for that. So we need to decide what that is. So you can get on this and get depressed later if you want, kind of looking at student loan debt, credit card debt, mortgage debt. You see how fast this is going up? One of the things, where is it per person? We're paying $373 billion as our interest on our debt. So that's helpful. Then there's unfunded IOUs that we like Medicare and Social Security. And so if we add those, this is the total U.S. debt. That's 74 trillion. So that's higher. Total personal debt is let's see. Oh gosh, is that over a trillion? I think it's trillion. 19 trillion. But where is it? Total debt per family or per citizen is 224,000. So if we wanted to pay off the IOUs and the national debt, each of us would have to pay 224,000. That's a lot of debt, right? Including babies. That's true. Yes. So this is the U.S. debt visualized, but this is a while ago. I don't think this has been updated for a few years. So here's $100. That's $10,000. That'd be nice to have in your pocket, right? That's $1 million. That's $100 million. Huh. This is $100 million, which is what this is right here. 1 year of work for 3,500 average Americans that I think are making maybe $45,000 a year, something like that. So that's a lot of people working for a whole year just to get this amount of money, right? Does that look like a lot of money?
Yeah, for one person.
Yeah, for one person, right? That's just 100 million. Here's 1 billion. Here's your boyfriend over here. He's guarding the money. All right, here's 1 trillion. There's the guy and the woman standing here. Look at that. Is that a lot? Here, that's looking at it from above. That's the White House, by the way. Or no, I'm sorry, that's the national, what's that called? Not the White House, but our nation's Capitol building. Here is in 2017 when we had 20 plus trillion. That's the Statue of Liberty. That goes pretty high, huh? That is how much debt we're in right now without the IOUs. So is that a lot of money? Yeah. They built skyscrapers. All right. So let's talk about what 1 trillion is. Stop showing me this stuff. So 1 trillion, that's what it looks like on paper, but how long ago is 1 trillion seconds? Right? It says 1 million seconds is 12 days ago, 1 billion seconds is 31 years ago, and 1 trillion seconds is 30,000 BC. That's 1 trillion seconds. And we have $22 trillion. Isn't that crazy? 30,000 BC for seconds? That's crazy. How high is 1 trillion in $1,000 bills? Well, $1 million is 4 inches high, 1 billion is 364 feet high, and 1 trillion is 63 miles high. And that's $1,000 bills, not $100 bills. $1,000 bills. All right. With about 305,000 people and 111,000 households in the U.S., $1 million is 1 cent per household, 1 billion is $3.28 per person, and 1 trillion is 3,280 per person. So we saw the amount of debt we had was going to be hundreds of thousands per person, right? So if you earned $40,000 per year, how long would it take you? Well, it'd take you 25 years to earn $1 million, 25,000 years to earn 1 billion, and 25 million years to earn 1 trillion. So is 1 trillion a lot of money? So when we're just throwing things out and, the people are up there in Washington, D.C., and they're like, oh, it's only like a few billion. That's like pennies on the dollar. Or it's only like 385 million. That's like a drop in the bucket. It takes the rest of us who have to live on a budget a long time to earn $1 million. And so 1 trillion is 25 million years. So we don't want to just not care about that, right? So how are we doing in New Mexico, do you think, with debt? What do you guys think? How are we doing? Not so good? Here's the most financially literate states. Number 1 is Virginia. 2 is Utah. What number do you think New Mexico is?
48.
48. Who thinks 50? Okay. Who thinks 28? All right. Let's go down and see. I'll just go to the bottom here. All right, so New Mexico is actually 47. Last year when I did this, we were 49. So good job. Because of my classes, we went up 2 points. So that's good. No, I'm just kidding. So we were 49, now we're 47. So we have, and this is financial stress, debt, lots of things. Yeah?
How's there 51?
Because Washington, D.C. is not a state. It's a territory, so they count Washington, D.C. So there's 50 states plus D.C. Good question. All right. So let's continue on here because we got a lot to cover. But I want you to understand that what we're looking at with our national debt and how we're doing in New Mexico, and that you guys can choose to do something different, right? No matter what they're doing in Washington or the White House, in your house, you guys can choose to live on a budget, to stay out of debt, to minimize debt, and to invest and grow your money, right? So did we see this before? This is debt. This is you. You should be scared of it. And so not Thursday, because Thursday you're going to watch a video and do a reflection, but next Tuesday we're going to talk about, all next week is student loan debt and understanding student loan debt. You should be afraid of it. I have lots of doctor friends and people that graduate with hundreds of thousands of debt, and even people that aren't doctors that graduate with tens of thousands of dollars of debt, and it limits the choices that they have. They want to do something, but they feel trapped because they have to have this job and it makes enough money to pay their debt and basic needs. And they can't really go and try new things or be an entrepreneur because they're strapped because of this giant debt load that they have. So we're going to be talking about how to stay out of debt and what that means. 43% of all American families spend 10% more than they actually make. So is that good? That's not good, right? That means they're not even living paycheck to paycheck, but they're going deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. So the goal is to stop digging a hole of debt and actually at least not go further into debt. And then the next step would be to try to minimize expenses and things so you're actually living on less than you earn, and you can put and pay yourself first, right? You save some to invest like we talked about last week. All right, so there's two kinds of people. Those who pay interest, that's if you're in debt. Remember, we talked, well, I don't know if we said this, we'll say later, but when you're in debt, you're paying people interest. Or when you're saving and investing, then you have interest paid to you. So just by raise of hands, this is, who wants to be the person who pays interest? Who wants to do that? Raise hand. Nobody? Who would rather receive and earn interest? Raise your hand. All right, good. So you guys want to save and invest, and you don't, but at the same time, sometimes we're like the federal government, right? We don't want to pay interest, but we want things now. And we don't have the money to pay now, so what do? We borrow money so that we can have the stuff now because we can't regulate ourselves and delay gratification. So we think, everybody else has it. I want that too. I don't have cash to pay for it, but that's what I can afford the monthly payment. Guess what's on that monthly payment? Interest that we're paying to other people. So you say you want to be that person. That's great. That's a good goal. But how do we get there so that you're actually earning and not paying interest? Okay? So why do we go into debt? We've talked about this, but need the new phone. Anybody go brave enough to tell me you go multiple times a week and get coffee at like Starbucks or something like that? Okay, those are called spending leaks, right? Ways that we can minimize where our money's going and we can redirect it to a better purpose of saving or minimizing our debt or whatever. We want it now. We need the cool car. We think I don't know, who's this? One of my TAs did this. Is this somebody everybody knows? Maybe it's just we think we're like princesses or queens and have to have everything. All right. So we said this. There's a couple of things that we repeat because these presentations and programs, I go around the state and deliver these. And so I try to take some of the overlap out, but we talked about this in our building wealth. Our expenses that we say that are necessary fill and meet our income unless we protest. To the contrary, it says. So if I make $20,000 a year, then I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm like, if I could only just get $25,000, then I could save. And then all of a sudden I'm making $35,000, and guess what? I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. And then I'm making $80,000, and guess what? I'm still living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because our necessary expenses keep going up because we think, I can afford that now, I can afford that now. And we're still living paycheck to paycheck. All of a sudden we're making $150,000, and we're like, hey, why am I still living paycheck to paycheck? I was doing that at $40,000, now I'm at $150,000, and I'm still not getting ahead. So that's the difference between, again, the rich mentality and the broke mentality, right? The rich mindset and the poor mindset. So we want to protest and minimize our debt, save and pay for things later. So these are the top causes of debt. I'd say auto loans, saving habits, meaning we don't have them, we don't pay ourselves first. We spend, and then hopefully at the end there's money left to save. That's never going to work, guys, by the way. If you make a budget and then savings on what's left, no, savings needs to be 10 to 15% first, pay yourself first, and then you live off the rest. That's how you do savings. So lack of saving habits. Student loans, we're going to talk about that. Credit cards, some of these others are more, financial ignorance, are more later in life maybe. But these are the big ones, right? So, we talked a little bit about spending leaks, but can somebody tell me what spending leaks is, or an example of a spending leak? What's an example? You know one. Coffee at Starbucks or wherever you want. What's another one? Eating out. Yeah, because do we need food? But do we need to eat out all the time? And when we eat out, do we need to go and get the $10 to $15 thing, or can we get... So let me tell you a story that I'm proud of. You guys may think that I'm a cheapskate, but so my kids, if we go out to eat, we try to go and get stuff like off the dollar menu. because it's cheaper, right? You can get 2 or 3 things off the dollar menu. That's what you get. And these other kids are, well, that kid's getting like the whatever Happy Meal or thing. And I'm like, we don't do that. So my oldest son, he's 17 now, but when he was younger, maybe in 5th or 6th grade, he went out with some friends that were, well, they were wealthier than us, but they also didn't, care about how they spent their money. And so they went out to eat. And the dad's like, "Hey, Caleb, what do you want?" And he's like, "Well, I'll just get this and this off the dollar menu." He's like, "You're going to get stuff off the dollar menu?" He goes, "Yeah, that's what I always get." He goes, "Well, you can have this." And he goes, "No, I'm fine. I'll just have this." He goes, "Well, what kind of drink do you want?" He goes, "Oh, I'll just have water." I'm like, "That's my son, yes." So that made me proud. He now spends a little more money than I want. So he tended to go out with those guys too much, I think. But that was a good story where he was wanting to buy stuff off the dollar menu, right? I would suggest, of course, that's if we get into health and nutrition, that's not always great going out to eat, especially places that have dollar menus. Those aren't the most nutritious places. But what's one more spending leak? Going to the movies, right. And then how is this a spending leak? Do I need a phone? Do you guys need your phone?
Yes.
Yeah, but how could it be a spending leak then? Spending leak is basically money that you're spending on things that you don't need to, that are wants, not needs. So if I need a phone, do I need a smartphone like this?
And then you get an older model, a cheaper data plan.
Okay, yeah. There's lots of ways. I could have, this is the Galaxy. This is the Samsung 9, and I could get like a lower version, right? An older one. I could get a flip phone if I wanted to. I could have a lower data plan or whatever. So there's lots of different ways, right? We talked about the cable bill and other things, how you can spending leaks. Here's the top 10 ways that Americans spend money. Food away from home is number 1. That probably is true for you guys too. And then maybe up here some hobbies and pets and things, and there's alcohol and entertainment and clothing and vacations. All right, so when is it okay to go into debt? Is it okay to go into debt?
Never okay to go into debt.
Never?
Never.
What are these things? Debt incurred for education. I would put in there education, but minimize debt as much as possible, right? Not just go and borrow everything you can. We'll talk again about that next week. So as little as possible for education. What does this say? Modest home. And what does this say? Basic automobile. Maybe necessary to provide for a family, right? Or for yourself. So you may need a car. Again, car's a lot of money. I mean, you're paying repairs and insurance and gas, and you had to pay for it. I mean, if you could get around on a bike, or if there's, buses or things, or your friend has a car, that'd be way cheaper. I mean, you guys should think about that. Do I have a car where I don't really use it that much, and I could get away with not having a car and not have to pay all these different things? If you're paying for those. But if your parents are paying for them, you're like, I don't care, right? But guess what, guys? You are going to be getting older, and you are going to have to start paying for some of these things. So you want to be thinking about that. So you guys on Thursday are going to watch a video about Drive Free, Retire Rich, about cars, that will wake you up about should we be buying brand new cars or basically used cars. And then a modest home. All right. So consumer loans, that's when we're borrowing money, and that's, again, from most any type of loans. And it does what? Do you guys agree with this? Does it encourage consumption instead of saving? When you got a credit card and you swipe it? It encourages us to go and pay for those things. It's expensive, and usually it's unnecessary. And as you go on, you get more and more in debt. So, should you have at least one credit card? Who thinks that, Dave Ramsey says no credit cards. What do you guys think? Okay, so it can help with building credit. Who was talking? Right? Somebody was saying something. Why else? Who thinks we should have a credit card? Raise your hand. Who thinks that credit cards are evil, you shouldn't have a credit card? All right, so what were you going to say?
A lot of places don't accept debit cards, like the hotels. If you reserve a hotel, you have a credit card.
Okay. So you do have to have a card. But if you have a debit card that has the Visa or MasterCard logo, you can usually use that as a credit card and they'll take that. So I haven't ever been to a place where they haven't accepted a debit card with that, but there's, that's a good thing to think about. All right, so emergencies. Is this a good emergency fund for having a credit card? No, you should have an emergency fund, but for those who don't, if there's a real emergency, having credit is one reason to have it, right? Making reservations, right, for hotels or different things. Convenience, is it convenient to just swipe the card rather than carry a bunch of cash around, or does anybody write checks out anymore? I don't think so, right? Cash flow and timing, so you use your credit card and it's free until you have to pay it, right? So I just got an email today that says, hey, your Citibank card is due, or your statement is done. And so it closed, and now it shows that I owe a certain amount of money, and I don't have to pay it until when? November 11th. And if I paid in full by November 11th, how much interest did I pay? 0. So it kind of gives you a loan, but that can kind of be bad if you're always living, buying stuff and hoping that you can pay for it in the future. So, but it does allow you to give some cash flow, free services, and it builds your credit score. So we'll talk about credit later. Okay, so here's some reasons to avoid credit cards. It increases your spending. Did you know that people get credit cards, they're like, I get 1% or 2% back on everything that I do? 1.5%. Well, on average, you spend about 5% more than you would if you just use cash or a debit card. So if you're spending an average of 5% more and getting 1.5% cash back, is that a good deal? Or miles? Probably not. You have obligations on your future income, like I said. Okay, I've spent all this stuff. Oh my gosh, now I owe $3,000 I have to pay by November 11th. Do I even have that money, or did I already spend it all? I better have that, right? You have interest and fees if you don't pay it off. There's annual fees possibly. If you're late, not only does it hurt your credit, but there's a late fee plus the interest. So you lose track of what you're spending. You're just spending money and hoping that you can pay it later. So here's the rules, I think, with using credit cards. Because everybody probably has a credit card, or if not, you'll have one. I say you pay off the credit card on time or earlier every month in full, right? If you can't pay it in full, then don't use it. So my wife and I, we were using credit cards. I mean, I still use credit card, but different things now. And we were using it, and we could track it. It went in there. We went into Mint, right? We talked about Mint. It tracks it easily for us. We use our debit card for some things. It goes into Mint. It's easy to track. And we're noticing that we continue to go over in things like groceries or like vacations or household goods or things for the kids like birthdays and anniversaries and things. And so we said, guess what? We're not going to, I still paid it off every month, but I wasn't saving. I was going into savings to pay off the stuff that we were going over on or not saving as much. So I said, we're just going to take this amount of money and put it over here into this checking account that my wife has a debit card for, and she's going to use that for these things, and she gets to control that. But that's, once the money's gone, it's gone. We're only going to use the credit card now for things that we would normally and have to buy anyways, like if we can pay insurance or other things, and you can use a credit card, it's not going to be more or less, right? So we're just going to pay that on a credit card. So now I use a credit card, and I build my credit, and I get some cash back, but it's only on those things where I'm not going to spend more than I would. Does that make sense? Because you can easily lose track of what you're spending. And then if you can't keep track and you just keep spending, you can't pay it off every month, then you do plastic surgery and cut it up, right? And we'll talk about whether you should close the account or not, and that's going to affect your credit. You can cut it up, or you can put it, say, in a little jar of water and stick it in the fridge, so it's frozen, so if you really need it, then you can get it out and crash it to the ground and get it for an emergency or something. But you don't want to just have it in your wallet and make it easy. So, all right, any thoughts or questions about credit cards? Signs of trouble. You're only making the minimum payment. You reached the credit limit. You had $2,000 credit limit. Last time you checked, you were at $300. All of a sudden, you're like at $1,995. That's problematic, right? So, not knowing how much you owe. Getting cash advances on your credit card. Trying to get new credit and being turned down. All right, so this is what you're going to watch on Thursday. It's open and available now, so anytime from today, you have until Friday at midnight to do this assignment. It's like 5.5 minutes, and then you have to share it with somebody and then talk to somebody about it and write 1 page about that. Okay, so all of that should take less time than one of our classes. So in lieu of class, we do not have class on Thursday. You're supposed to do this, right? So you're going to watch and talk about how do you drive free and retire rich just by not having a car loan. And then when we come back on Tuesday, I want to hear your thoughts, a couple thoughts about how that happens. But just a quick thing about cars. A lot of people think, and we justify why we need a brand new car, right? I don't know what the other people did. What if I get a lemon, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there's lots of ways to get a 2 to 4 or 5, whatever year-old car, do a Carfax, take it to a mechanic. There's lots of things you can do to check and make sure it's a good car and not a lemon, and it depreciates a ton, right? Right when it leaves the lot. So you go buy a brand new car and you bought it for $18,000 or $20,000 and you leave. Guess what? If you wanted to sell it back and they didn't take it back, or a month later you wanted to sell it back to them, they'd only pay $16,000 when you pay $20,000. It depreciates, which means it goes down in value. So you don't want to be taking that big hit. You want a good car with low miles that somebody else that's not very smart financially took the hit, and you find a 2-year-old car. So if we're in 2019, you're like, okay, 2017, let me find a 2017 car that's under 30, 40,000 miles, and you're going to get the best deal that way than going and buying a 2019, or even worse, a 2020 car that's brand new. Okay? So if you want to know more about that, we can talk more about that. But you get ripped off buying brand new cars. Student loans. We'll talk more about this Tuesday. All right, what about payday loans? We go up and down in our experiences and our financial lives and other things. So no judgment here. Who has used a payday loan or tote to note or rent to own or stuff like that? Anybody use one that they can share their experience with us? Nobody wants to share? Come on. How about does anybody have a brother, sister, or friend who has used this? That's not you, but as a friend. Anybody? All right, do you know how this works? You go and you need money to pay rent or whatever. You don't have a credit card, or it's maxed out, and you need a few $100s to pay rent. And so you go to a payday lender, and they say, well, how much do you earn and stuff? And you say, well, I get $500 every 2 weeks. Yeah.
I've done that.
You have? Okay. And so then they say, well, we'll give you $300, and in a week, when you get your check cashed, then you pay us $325, right? And you get the rest of it. And so some people go and they do that, and again, we're in different areas of our lives. Hopefully we don't do that in the future. But you think, it's only $25, and I need it now, and no one else is going to loan it to me, so this is a good idea, right? No, it's not. It's lots and lots of money. So it affects your credit score negatively, and the interest rates are huge. So if you add up, let's see, yeah, here's it. So you're a little short on cash, rent's $550. You have to pay it September 30th, but it don't get paid. So you go and get $550, and then you have to pay back an extra $25, $575, when you get paid. So what's the interest on this loan? $25 is all, right, on $550. It's 232%. Would anybody keep a credit card in their wallet that was 232% interest rate? Go get a loan, a car loan for 232%? No, so that's what payday loans do. And if you can't pay for it now, then you get in this negative cycle, because then you're going to fall short again. And so then you go back. And so if it's a one-time thing, it's not that bad. You did it once, right? But if we keep doing it, then we're figuring out that pretty soon 232% of our money on interest is going to payday lenders. So stay away. Big red flag, red X, don't go there. Try to figure something else out. All right. What about borrowing from friends and relatives? Is that a good idea? Does that bring happy thoughts when you go to Thanksgiving and you owe somebody and they're like, hey, I just saw on Facebook you went to Disneyland and you still owe me $200. What's going on? Oh yeah, I don't have money because you went to Disneyland? right? Is that a fun conversation to have at Thanksgiving dinner? No, it's not. So my input or thoughts are, if you're going to loan somebody, a close friend or a family member, money, make sure that one, you're not enabling them in bad behavior. Two, that you have the money. It's not like borrowed and now you're lending it to them, that you're financially fit yourself. And then three, if you're going to loan them money, you can say it's a loan, but in your mind think this is a gift. And if they don't pay me back, then I'm not going to have hard feelings. Nothing is worth risking the relationship for, right? So if you're not willing to give it to them, don't loan it to them. Does that make sense? All right. Anybody interested in getting married and getting a big diamond ring, ladies? Who wants a big diamond ring? Ladies, come on. Where are you? Right here? You want a big diamond ring? You know, cubic zirconiums are way better. That's the new thing. Did you know that? Trying to help you out, guys. All right, so James is in love with Abby. Before proposing, he bought a beautiful $3,600 diamond engagement ring and paid with his Visa card. That's smart. Minimum payment, $60. James only pays the minimum payment because that's all he can afford. He's like, everybody does this. Car loans, whatever. They're like, well, how much? You say, how much is this car? Well, how much can you afford per month? Why does that matter? I want to know how much the car costs. Well, how much can you afford? And then I can tell you, because it used to be a 4-year loan. Then it was only 5-year. Car loans were never longer than 5 years. Do you know that you can get longer than 5-year car loans now? Yeah, 7, 8 years. Why? So people can get the expensive cars and have the same payment. And guess what? You're just paying way more money in interest over time. So he can afford a $60 payment. That's why he bought the $3,600 ring. And how many months do you think it'll take him to pay off his credit card? It's 19%. Is that normal? 19% credit card? Yeah. 19.9 is pretty average. How much interest and how long? So, who thinks it'll take longer than 15 years? Okay, who thinks that they'll have to pay, he borrowed $3,600, who thinks that he'll have to pay less than $3,600 in interest? Who thinks more than $3,600 in interest? So you think it's going to double? The ring's going to cost twice as much or more. All right. Almost 16 years. He paid $3,600 to principal, $7,800. That's almost twice. Or no, that's more than twice. That's 70 in interest, and a total of $11,000 for that ring. Is that a good deal? He bought that ring thinking $60 payment, just like you guys do with car payments, right? I can afford this $350 payment. It's going to take me 8 years, but who cares? And unknowing that you're paying the car principal off and paying way more in interest. Does that sound financially smart to you? No. So we need to change our mindset. I'm trying to help you understand real life scenarios so that you don't want to be in debt anymore. Okay, if you're in debt, then you want to get out of debt. If you're not in debt, you want to stay out of debt, right? You want to save up and pay cash for cars. You want to save up and pay cash for vacations. You want to minimize your spending leaks so you have money to save for those things and not go into debt. You want to minimize your student loan debt because this is the same thing that's happening in student loans that we'll talk about next week. All right, why get out of debt? Here's one more. This is a similar example. It's a credit card. They borrowed $5,000, paid the minimum. It took 11 and a half years, and they paid a total of $8,100. So you have to think about it's $1.62 for every dollar you spend. So if you go and you buy something for $10, it's $16.20 that you're actually spending if you're using a credit card and paying minimum payments. So you have to keep that in mind. That doesn't sound very smart to me. Anybody ever looked at the mortgage debt? I know you guys aren't. Anybody in a home or have a mortgage or want to get a mortgage soon? No? But you want to get a house in the future, right? So let me share how you can save a lot of money. There's a difference between, this is a 30-year loan and a 15-year loan. On a 15-year loan, you can't see this real well, but they're both $200,000 you're borrowing. On a 30-year loan, you're going to pay interest rate, say, of 4.5%. That's this example. And on a 15-year loan, because you're less of a risk, they're going to give you a discount. So you only have to pay 4% instead of 4.5%, right? A little bit of a discount. But because you're paying, do you think you're paying more money each month with a 15-year or more money with a 30-year? Who thinks 15-year? You're paying more money per month for your house. 15-year.
Per month?
Per month, yeah. Yeah, you have to, because in order to pay it off faster, you have to pay more, right? So the payment is $1,479, and a 30-year is only $1,013. So that's about $450 difference that you have to pay more. But how much do you pay in interest? $66,000 you're going to pay in interest on a $200,000 home, $66,000 in interest on a 15-year, and $165,000, $99,000 more on a 30-year. That's a big difference, right? $165,000 instead of just $66,000. So more than double, 2.5 times almost more in interest just by doing a 30-year loan than a 15-year. So get into a home you can afford a 15-year mortgage on, and that will save you tens of thousands of dollars of debt. So let's look at these. This is a mortgage payment. You owe $200,000. This is the 30-year loan, $1,013. How much is going to principal? $263. How much do you pay to interest? $750. So of your $1,000, 1/4, a quarter, is going to the principal, and 3/4, 75% is going to interest, right? That's a lot. So that's, if you're just looking at this payment, that's 300% interest rate. That's why we want to pay off our mortgage early. All right. Did we already watch Don't Buy Stuff You Can't Afford? No, we didn't. You guys like Saturday Night Live?
Oh, I just can't get these numbers to add up.
Like we're never going to get out of this hole.
Credit card debt, does it ever end?
Maybe I can help. We sure could use it.
We've tried debt consolidation companies.
We've even taken out loans to help make payments. Well, you're not the only ones. Did you know millions of Americans live with debt they cannot control? That's why I developed this unique new program for managing your debt. It's called Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford.
Let me see that. If you don't have any money, you should not buy anything. Sounds interesting.
Sounds confusing.
I don't know, honey. This makes a lot of sense. There's a whole section here on how to buy expensive things using money you save.
Give me that. And where would you get this saved money? I tell you where and how in Chapter 3.
Okay, what if I want something but I don't have any money?
You don't buy it. Well, let's say I don't have enough money to buy something. Should I buy it anyway? No. Now I'm really confused. It's a little confusing at first.
Well, what if you have the money? Can you buy something?
Yes.
Now take the money away. Same story?
Nope. You shouldn't buy stuff when you don't have the money. I think I got it. I buy something I want and then hope that I can pay for it, right? No. You make sure you have money, then you buy it. Oh, then you buy it. But shouldn't you buy it before you have the money? No.
Why not?
It's in the book. It's only 1 page long. The advice is priceless and the book is free.
Wow, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we can put it on our credit card.
So get out of debt now. Write for your free copy of Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford. And if you order now, you'll also receive Seriously, if you don't have the money, don't buy it. Along with a 12-month subscription to Stop Buying Stuff magazine. So order today.
All right. That's frustrating, huh? If you're a counselor and meeting with couples like that, it's frustrating. So, should you buy stuff you can't afford? No. All right. That was fun. All right. Who's heard of the debt snowball? Did we talk about this a little bit? All right. So this is a debt elimination calendar. If you're in debt, and this is what I counsel couples and others that I meet with when you're counseling, is you put the lowest balance first, and then it goes across. So we got a credit card, department store, dentist, not a piano loan? Yeah, I guess they bought a piano and an auto loan. So say that on their credit card, they were only paying $60 a month. right? And they found, because they minimized plugged some spending leaks, maybe stopped going out to coffee all the time and maybe stopped going out to eat a couple times, they found an extra $50. So they add the $50 to their 60, and now they have 110. So they pay the 110 down and it pays the credit card off sooner, right? Then they were paying 70 and 50 and 75 to these others. You just pay minimum to everything else and pay all the extra money you can on the lowest balance, right? Doesn't matter what the interest rate is, it's the lowest balance, so you can pay it off soon, because psychologically we like to see wins, right? So if the lowest or the highest interest rate maybe was this auto loan over here, but it's going to take a lot longer to pay off, then we're not getting that psychological win. So we want to say, what's the lowest balance? It's the credit card. So we're going to put all our extra money, then we, boom, pay it off. We feel good. We put the 110 with the 70, now it's 180. Boom, paid off. We put it with the 50, 230. Boom. Same thing until auto loan and everything's paid off. When you do this, PowerPay is something online or an app you can get on and put your different debts in, and it shows you and makes this for you and creates it and tells you how fast you can pay it off and how much interest that you save. So if you know anybody in debt and they're saying, hey, what's a good tool to help me get out of debt, tell them to go to PowerPay, online or an app, and they can put their information in. But this is the example adding a home. So before it was just car. If you add a home mortgage with it, that say people usually still owe 27, 28, 29 years on their homes usually. And this is what I did when I was your age and went out to help. Did I show you guys this already? I do webinars and stuff online, so I get confused with what I share and what I don't. So 27 and a half years in debt, that includes their mortgage, and they're paying $2,603.49 a month on their debt. Does that make sense? And so if they continue to pay that amount and do the debt snowball that we just talked about, put minimums towards everything, but all the extra money they can on one, and then over and over until they get to their home and pay that off, they'll be out of debt instead in 12 years instead of 27. There's $92,000 in interest that they save, so that's almost $100,000 they saved in interest, and $234,000 value of scheduled payments eliminated. Then, this is the red where they used to be getting out of debt. The green is the accelerated debt snowball. Then when they're done, if they continue to put that $2,600 in an investment, earning only 5% annually, and we know that you can earn more than that. I just showed you with over 12% interest rates, right? Over 10 years, people getting. So only 5% at the end of the 27.6 years here, instead of just paying off the debt, they now have $750,000 invested. Does that make sense? So it's huge. Instead of just living on debt, you're doing a debt elimination plan or a debt snowball to pay it off, and then you continue to do it to build it up. The problem is what happens when we pay the credit card off instead of moving it over here. Maybe we do it once and then we pay the store card off, and then what do? Man, I got like a lot of extra money. I used to only be paying 50 and now I have 230. Wouldn't it be fine if I double it and instead of 50 I pay 100 and now I have 130? What can I go and buy? I want this new furniture, I want this new whatever, and it's a $130 payment. I can afford that because see what I mean? So our mindset is wanting stuff now, caring about the payment, and not worrying about that we're paying double or more in interest to somebody else. So there's two kinds of people, remember? People who pay interest, and that's their mentality. Ooh, I'm doing a good job here. Let me take 100 of this, 130, and just leave 100 extra, and get something else. And that's going to keep you in poverty the rest of your life. You're going to stay broke, right? It's a mentality. If you get out of debt and then invest it, you're going to build wealth. So we've seen this before. Compound interest, it works both ways. Debt, you're paying interest, somebody else is earning the money, right? Like in the mortgage, you're paying $1,000 and it only, for you, is $250. For the bank, $750. I'd rather be getting the $750. So you're in debt, you're not winning. When you're investing, you're winning. And we've talked about this. I'm trying to repeat things to get it into your brain. So avoid debt, minimize debt, eliminate debt, become debt-free. Are there any questions about debt that you guys wanted to know about that we didn't talk about or answer other than student loans? No? Hopefully you guys are getting a feel of wanting to save. And are there tools, easy ways to save? Acorns, etc. Are there easy ways to help you get out of debt? Yeah. So that's it. Thursday we're not meeting. We'll do the assignment. I'll see you back next Tuesday, okay?